Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Commercial Real Estate Secrets. I'm your host, Austin Hare. And today our guest is Aaron Plaat. He's the owner of Tripleskinny. Tripleskinny is an agency that focuses on digital paid patient acquisition and lead generation. And so Aaron and I are both familiar with my partner, Nate Palmer. That's how we got connected together. And it's a pleasure to have you on the show, Aaron. How's it going?
Oh, it's fantastic, Austin. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, so a little bit of history. I started working with Nate a few years ago. I've known him for like maybe 5 or 6 years, but you've known him for a lot longer.
Yeah,
So
we've been friends since we were, I think, 12 or 13 years old. And
yeah,
so
and Nate has done. We did a couple of recordings, joint recordings on the podcast as well a few months ago. Like we started out like that for everybody listening. But yeah, so tell us how you were friends from childhood, and then I know you went to get your broker's license together as well, right?
yeah, absolutely. So Nate and I, we met, in middle school, kind of went through high school together as best friends. There were three of us. It was Corey, Nathan, and Aaron, kind of the three amigos, if you will. And we all went to real estate school together. We all got our licensure. And that was, prior to the crash in 2008. So we had just gotten into the real estate waters then at a really, really difficult time in the market. And so it wasn't a good time to enter the space.
Yeah. So, how do you spend a lot of time working on deals and during that time frame?
Yeah, we did. We had a couple big deals that we were working on, and basically the market crashed. Financing and lending became very difficult at that time, and we walked away empty-handed. So,
Wow. Well, obviously, yeah, Nate decided to stay on the course, but you chose a different path. So, what was that like for you?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, we kind of had a parting of ways in terms of our career pursuits. He went more real estate, kind of more the traditional business model, and I was always intrigued by technology. I've been using a computer since I was really probably 8 years old. I think I had my first email address at 10,
Hmm.
and technology has always been something interesting to me. So I went out west, to Los Angeles, and started Tripleskinny out there, and since then it's kind of grown.
Yeah, yeah, that's crazy. That's really cool. So, let's start kind of from the beginning. So, you left commercial real estate. What was like the very first project, like digital marketing project that you did? Did you pretty much hop straight into it?
It was an interesting transition. I worked on a couple projects in like the ed tech space and e-commerce prior to going full into marketing. So it was kind of those different projects that gave me a good proficiency with digital marketing and paid acquisition that actually led me to start offering it as a service.
Hmm. Okay. And so that's kind of where you got your teeth sharpened, more or less.
Absolutely, and it was a really simple trail, if you will. We started off as primarily a design and web development agency, and a lot of times our clients would say, "Hey, do you do anything with advertising?" And at that time, we didn't. But eventually, it started to be something that we would offer, in kind of small scale here and there. Facebook advertising came onto the scene, and that was really when things kind of took off, and we really just hit marketing incredibly
What
hard.
what year was this?
Oh boy, that's a good question. I mean, 2015, 2016 was kind of when people were starting to get really familiar, with Facebook advertising. And really a couple of years before that was when it was in its infancy.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's relatively recently. So that's a long gap between when you stopped, when you left commercial real estate and then in 2008 and then started this. That's about 8 years. So were you with the same firm for these entire 8 years?
No, I went ahead and started Tripleskinny, and we just primarily just did web development,
Okay.
during that time period. And so that was kind of the ramp up period between real
I see.
estate and getting into
So there
tech.
was a long time of doing the web development before you guys really
Absolutely,
started
yeah.
the digital
That's just
marketing.
kind of
Yeah.
steady bread and butter for years.
Yeah. So, because at the time, I mean, really, Facebook ads weren't even a thing until, I mean, definitely not in 2008, but by the time you got into it, 2016, it sounds like it was already becoming popular. So, like, when did that actually become a thing? Do you think, like, marketing on
Yeah.
Facebook?
It was, I would say it really solidified between, 2015 and 2018. Those were three really, really
Okay.
popular years where people were doing a lot with Facebook. We're kind of seeing a shift in the industry, away from Facebook and more into PPC, and we can, kind of unpack that. But it had its heyday. It was doing incredibly well. A lot of people really entered that space and, were able to get a lot of business out of it.
Yeah, no, I know you and I talked about this before, but I saw the same thing back. So I had my fitness centers I opened the first one in 2013, and I sold all three of them in 2019. And same kind of thing. Like at first, it was like, you know, started out with SEO, went away from SEO, and then came
Mhm.
back because it was all about Google and like everybody was talking about it, but it became like almost saturated, right? Like to get everybody was like, oh, get your, get number one on the list, get at the top of the rank. But it's like, that was super, super hard and super, super expensive. So it's like, okay, this is too expensive, screw it. And then I remember in 2017, we really went heavy with the Facebook ads, and we just didn't even pay attention to SEO at all.
Mhm.
And we were getting great results. So 2017 to like mid 2018, just, it felt like we were printing money. It was working so successfully. And then bam, all of a sudden mid 2018, it was like we hit a wall. And then it
Yep.
became very, very difficult. And it was still possible. And we held on to that all the way until mid 2019. And then finally mid 2019, I sold two of the gyms. I had one left. And I was like, the Facebook ads, the leads are just not good quality. They're getting more and more and more expensive. Like, and I switched back to SEO. And
Mhm.
then it was like, man, I've been missing out, because all of a sudden it was like you were attracting people who were interested in your business. You weren't just trying to, show a shiny object and hope they clicked. And is that similar to what you guys were seeing at the time as well?
Absolutely. And I can kind of tell you what happened in the market. Back when SEO, kind of to go back to the process here, SEO used to be something you could dump a lot of money into, and have great organic results. It was also kind of the wild west of SEO, and as everyone knows, Google responded by basically changing their algorithms and making, white hat practices. So at the time, you had a ton of people in the space that were kind of pitching the service, which really led people to become familiar with SEO. What is
They were
it?
what with the service? Did you say glitching?
Uh, SEO. People became familiar with SEO.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know. It sounded
And
like you said they were glitching the service. I wasn't familiar with that term.
oh no, they became familiar like
Okay.
with SEO as a
Gotcha.
service term. So it became something that we would just hear, quite a bit of from our clients. Hey, do you do this?
Yeah.
And then as you said, Facebook really became this, incredible ad platform, where all of a sudden, advertisers could have great tools that were previously restricted to really, top tier agencies.
Mm.
And so there really was a period where, Facebook became, fun, attractive, and a great way to, to gain new customers or patients. The shift ultimately has been, towards a pure PPC approach. It really boils down to the fact that when I'm scrolling through my Facebook feed or Instagram, I may not necessarily want to make a decision to book a medical appointment, or contact an attorney. What I do want to see is what my friends are up to, and what I would like is when I go to a search engine, I'm trying to find something that I can find the most relevant service provider, that I'm looking for. And so ultimately we kind of come full circle back to Google.
So, do you think that there is that it's more or less gotten, I don't know if I want to say sophisticated in the terms of what you're looking for, but I can't think of really a better word to describe, like, is there a dichotomy, like certain things, it used to be everything, you could do everything on Facebook.
Mhm.
Now is it just there are certain things that are better for Facebook and certain things that are better than SEO? Like, do you think it's kind of just branched off in that sense, and they've each gotten kind of more refined?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what's happening in the market is that Facebook, it just becomes another part of a full marketing stack. I absolutely suggest it's great for awareness campaigns. If you want to show pictures of, of your office or your product, or, really tell a story, you can still use all those great tools, to do so. But what we're recommending to clients now, and this is pretty cohesive across, other agency owners that I work with, really in the lead gen space, is that they're pushing budget away from social channels and really kind of directing it back to PPC.
Mm. Yeah, and it makes sense because things like, when I was in fitness, it's not something that's just like super fun, and like you're just like gonna be, mindlessly scrolling, and all of a sudden think, oh, you know what? Like, yeah, why don't I completely change my life and kill myself for 60 minutes a day? And same thing with dental. It's like, you're scrolling, you're having fun, you're aimlessly just hanging out on the network, and then it's like, oh, you know what? Yeah, why don't I go ahead and sign up for a teeth cleaning or having a tooth pulled? Like, it's not like I feel it's more geared towards somebody that's like, oh, get you know a buy one get one free at a sub shop or a coffee shop or something like that. That's like more like fun and entertaining, versus like the PPC is like you're very intentional about it. Like, okay, I don't
Mhm.
like, it's not fun. I don't want to get my teeth cleaned. I don't want to get my tooth pulled, but I know I need to, or I know I need to go to the gym. I know I need to CU lawyer, something like that. Is that kind of an explanation behind what you guys are seeing?
Absolutely. And it really is just building a full funnel strategy. In the teeth whitening example, you may think about tooth whitening just when you're scrolling through social networks and see friends with perfectly white teeth. And you kind of think, oh, I should really get onto that. But you may not be ready to make a purchase decision at that point. Does that make sense? But if you see an ad, that says, hey, this is something that we offer, it kind of can plant the seed. But ultimately, where you want to find people is when they go up the trail, if you will, or the funnel, to Google, and they basically search, tooth whitening services. There you have a really interested buyer, somebody with purchase intent, and that's a great time to meet them with your advertisement or your information.
Yeah, yeah. And so, it's interesting too, just the correlation between commercial real estate, site selection, and digital marketing, because they're all really geared towards how can I get more clients. And so, picking a really, really good location can actually save you money in terms of pay per click or advertising, because as a digital marketing platform, like they're all bidding platforms. And so it seems like they're just only going to go up over time as more and more people start competing and start spending money for those same eyeballs. How do you fight against that? Is that something that you're seeing?
Absolutely. I mean, that's a great way to put it. And just like in real estate, if you're making a new gas station, you're going to do a survey on traffic. What direction, what side of the road is a good place for this? And you need to think about your internet marketing approach in the same way. By kind of going up channel, if you will, and going directly to Google PPC, instead of through, a platform, let's say Zillow, for example, where they have their leads, and then, you know what I mean? And those are separate platforms and they're all very expensive, as we know. Again, all part of a stack, but the tip of the spear, if you will, is going to be Google. And in terms of a lot of people entering the space, I think it's absolutely a concern, because just doing AdWords and setting up an ad campaign doesn't mean that you're doing it properly. And I'll give you a really simple difference here. If you have two campaigns here, one might be targeting Houston, and 1,000 people there. And if that's the only parameter that they're targeting, right, you have an audience of 1,000. Once you start using different audience metrics, age, location, time of day, etc., that pool of people that could potentially see the ad gets cut in half, if not more so. And so the actual cost that you spend to get those interested leads is substantially less. So it's kind of like the difference between driving your car and driving your car with a blindfold on.
Hmm. Okay, so walk us through your process and how does it start? Like, what are some mistakes you see people doing, and what are like the first steps to correct those?
Absolutely. So the very first thing that we do is we get to know our client. Before we even come in and pitch any sort of solution or overhaul, we want to know what's working for their business. What has been their experience with advertising? What are the budgets they've spent? Do they have any past historical data? And so we kind of take a restorative approach where we say, hey, let's see what you're doing and see, what's working. The next step is that before we spend any sort of aggressive, campaign money, we want to run an audit. And so basically this is a full audit of your website, all the keywords, all of your traffic sources, basically all the things that kind of help us put together our campaigns. The next step there is that we'll run a pilot. And so it's usually about $2,500 a month of ad spend for a pilot. I don't suggest spending more than that because I like to spend, client money like my own. So really, the goal here is let's find, what does your account look like with an optimized campaign setup that we have, to get our first month of data. From that point on, we basically evaluate the data, we take a look at what's working, and then we add further optimizations as we go.
Okay.
And that's a very high level look at a campaign. A campaign can have multiple different steps in it. You can add different optimizations like retargeting, where you might have one campaign and if people click to your website, you then retarget the people who have visited. It cuts down your audience pretty substantially. So we have a lot of different bells and whistles that we use. We try to be, it doesn't make a lot of sense for our customers to explain the technical details. A lot of times we use the term, don't give me labor pains, just give me the baby. And so we kind of take that Tripleskinny approach with our clients. We say, hey, you've got a lot of brains behind this, but we're going to give you the meaningful insights from data that are really simple.
Yeah. So what are some of the outcomes then that change? Like, I'd imagine most people, I would think, are doing some form of digital marketing, right? Like you come across a lot of people who just don't touch it at all.
Absolutely. There are a lot of people who it really depends on, what time they have, what kind of team do they have they ever really thought about, entering the digital space? You would be really surprised at the number of really successful businesses that don't have any presence there in anything digital, or owners who think that social media, for example, going back to that, is something that a college student should be running for your company. All of these different things are different, layers of the full marketing stack, and not many people really have full proficiency in it.
So if somebody's is really successful, like you said, they're super busy already, what's the incentive there to start digital marketing? Is it just to essentially fill up go to 100% capacity?
Well, we're not a great fit for everybody. And for example, PPC or even, marketing, you might have two different clients here. For example, you could have a very successful general, dentist, that might just be looking to get to 100% capacity, or get to a point where they want to, grow their office and scale. So they're looking to add more, patients in their seats. The other example could be, let's say, a celebrity dentist. And, this is somebody who is, perpetually booked. At that point, they need to do more in the PR space than lead generation. So, but those are very much the far end, kind of examples on the bell curve here. Usually 80% of people that we speak to are in, desperate need for what we do.
Okay. So 80%, yeah, are needing to fill their chairs, needing to get more appointments, needing to grow their patient flow.
Yeah, very rarely do we talk to a dentist who says, "Hey, I don't need more business." I mean, very rarely do we talk to someone in real estate or anything else that doesn't want to sell more homes. So,
right. Yeah.
Everyone's looking to grow.
Yeah, it'd be kind of weird if you were. I mean, hopefully you have that means you've got a bottleneck somewhere, right? And hopefully you've got a plan in place to open up that bottleneck so you can continue to grow and scale, and then in which case you would need more patients. But yeah, so I think I guess you're saying earlier, you don't want the labor pains, you just want the baby. But I think it's helpful to really kind of understand some of that stuff, at least at a high level. So we're clear with terms. I mean, SEO is essentially search engine optimization, right? That would mean what you do on the back end to your own website versus pay-per-click is where you're actually advertising on the Google platform. But you have to marry those two things. So do you do like both of those? I mean, yeah, I guess the question is, do you have to do SEO in order to get an effective pay-per-click ad campaign?
No, you don't. But what you can do, and what we suggest, is start with pay-per-click, and then add SEO as a basically an organic way of boosting the campaign. Because if you're using white hat practices, which means basically safe in the eyes of Google, it'll take 10 to 12 months for your organic placement, which is your search results on Google, to start improving. But yeah, immediately with PPC, you can get right to the top. And
10 to 12 months. So that was one of the updates that Google did a while ago.
That's just the standard. Any client that wants to do an SEO campaign, we just say it is a 10 to 12 month period for these results to start rolling in. With PPC though, and you're right, you have to kind of explain things high level. All that PPC is, when somebody searches, for anything on Google, usually the top 3 results are paid placement. And so that's what we do. We basically put the information for the practice or the business in that paid placement. And what data has shown us is that over 50% of people who search on Google click on the top 3 placements above the organic results. So all that really shows us is that we know that statistically more people, are likely to click on an ad, and that's not going to change anytime soon. That sort of behavior. I need something, I search for it, I buy it. Mm-hmm. And so right now it's a great time in the market for people to reevaluate their digital strategy. Because a lot of agencies, have been doing a good job or a great job, but they may or may not have adjusted to the shift in the market right now. Additionally, this is a great time to look at PPC, just as being more of a majority of your marketing spend. Because my personal belief is that if you're a business owner right now, and at least 50% of your business is not coming through a paid digital channel within 10 years, or even 5, you're going to have a very difficult time surviving. And it's not.
Why is that?
Because people are doing this, Austin. People are doing this all the time.
Yeah.
When is the last time that we've looked through a phone book? A lot of our information comes through these screens. A lot of our communication is shifting to these screens. Kind of post, all the shifts that we've had in the last couple of years here, with people working remotely now, a lot of people are just kind of familiar using this as their digital interface to find everything. And in my life personally, Google has been my teacher. And I think a lot of people who are successful and have, gained proficiency with the internet realize that it all goes back to Google, which is how do you find information when you want it? And that's the simple thing there.
Yeah, it's interesting because I remember thinking when Facebook ads were doing really well, because we did focus on site selection at the gyms. We wanted to have nice retail spaces, and we wanted to have good walk by traffic and street visibility. But I remember like when we were running ads and they were working really well for a brief period of time, I was thinking like, man, I'm wasting all this money on rent because at the end of the day, people are coming in from the ads. I could be, it doesn't matter where I could be back in this industrial complex somewhere and they'd still find it. But that was very short lived. And so now I definitely see the benefit of having both. Like, it's simply put, you need to have both. And so it's like the you're just when you're because you are going to use Google. Like, I think you're going to use Google Maps to find out where the place is going to be. So some people pay attention, a lot of people will pay attention while they're driving on the street, but more so than the actual street visibility is how convenient is it to get to you. And that's why the location is important, because you're going to pull it up on your map. And then one of two things is going to be like, how close is it to my house, or how close is it to convenient is it to, from where I am right now? And the other part is it by something else that's convenient? Like, can I go and do other things right here? And that's what we call, a drive to versus a drive through. So I don't think that, I think these like digital marketing and your site selection go hand in hand in terms of getting new clients and new patients, because you can't just, if you have one without the other, then it's going to be more difficult.
I completely agree. And, you have to figure out what industry am I in, what's important to my customers, and what placement is digital going to have. Very, very rarely do I find any business model that shouldn't take a really hard look at adding digital, basically lead generation, revenue generation as the majority of their marketing stack.
Yeah. Yeah. And well, I mean, it's interesting too, like the because print and like direct mailers are so expensive and inconvenient, like there's almost seems like to be a opportunity for that, like if you do it right now, because like you get bombarded with them and people do them the wrong way. But like there's also a lot of companies that have stopped, like Airbnb, for instance, started mailing out monthly physical magazines to your house. So what do you see that switching and getting more popularity, or like what's your opinion on that?
As in like going back to paper?
Yeah, like if you were able to somehow do some unique physical thing. I mean, obviously it's gonna be more expensive.
I mean, from a performance perspective, we've been smoking paper campaigns for years. They have their place, but ultimately, I mean, a lot of those things just go right into the trash can. Kind of a long tail here is some people are actually concerned about being eco-friendly. For example, IKEA, kind of the long-term, like, catalog king, stopped printing them, and now they're, I think, just available on request or, through digital channels. I think Airbnb is kind of doing a similar IKEA thing. It's cool, it's unique, but kind of knowing their ethos as a company, I don't think it's going to be a campaign that lasts.
So right now there's a lot of, like, when you say digital marketing, technically that encompasses everything from Google to TikTok. So what platforms do you guys work with? And like, can you explain the difference of each platform?
Yeah, so we've done a lot with Facebook and Instagram advertising, just for years. So we have full proficiency there, but it really has been the top three. It's, Facebook, Instagram, and Google, really just as a top three approach. There are a lot of great other platforms, such as Vine, TikTok, YouTube, which is actually part of the display network for Google. There are a lot of different places where you can advertise. If somebody has the budget and the resources to have a full marketing stack, and they want reach in all those areas, by all means, go for it. it's great. A lot of times people really just want, as I call it, the skinny. They want the
Mm.
things that are going to be effective, that are going to produce for their business. And I don't have a lot of confidence in a lot of these spin-off social platforms that get really quick popularity and then die overnight.
Okay. So like, I guess TikTok would be an example of that. You think TikTok is going to die overnight, or you just think that do you think that it's similar to Facebook and where you got to really catch somebody's attention who's not looking for it?
Austin, I feel like we're going to be watching this in 10 years and one of us is going to be eating our words here, but I'm not going to say it's going to die overnight. To me, it's just simple purchase behavior or really behavior on people. You know, People will find something fun and shiny and play with it for a long time, just like a child does with a toy. Eventually, they move on to the next thing.
Mm.
And if there's anything that we've seen in the internet culture, especially the mobile internet culture, it's that we quickly swipe through things that gather our attention, whether it's an app, a service, a product, a workout program. We try things on for size very quickly, but we're very, very flaky. So I think that social networks like this will have great flare-ups. They will have market, they'll have people that you could reach there, but I wouldn't build the foundation of my marketing platform on something that I don't think is, like a top three.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Again, and I'll just very quickly, if you're an interior designer, then Pinterest would be a great platform for you. It really does depend on the customer, but typically when you throw a dart on the wall, I like to hit the big targets and I like to hit the ones that, have good results and that I know I can work with.
Okay. Two things. One is I want to kind of briefly have you walk through what somebody could do on their own. And then the second thing is if you have like a story of like a success story of somebody who, was just bleeding and so you're able to come through, and like what kind of metrics and tangible results were you able to get with this person?
Yeah, absolutely. So, which one do you want me to cover first?
Let's start with the story, it's like a success story.
Okay, so my favorite success story, there are actually two. One was actually through a Facebook ad campaign, and it was a woman in Texas, and she had been the victim of domestic abuse. And basically, she had posted pictures of her smile, what was left of it. She had no teeth in her front teeth. And as the moderator, immediately, I flagged the ad. I just removed it, took her information, and brought it right to the owner of the practice. That was Sam Zarabi of Rodeo Dental, who you have actually had on here before. And Austin, the most incredible thing happened. They took her out for like an entire day to like get new clothes. She went to a spa. She got her hair done. I mean, I get emotional talking about it. And they gave her new dental implants free of charge. And I think this woman, after 14 years, finally had a smile.
Wow.
So from a people and heart perspective, which is really important to me, I don't do this for the money. It really is about the love of it. That to me has been the most successful thing I've ever done in my career.
Wow.
From a performance perspective, there's an instance where we were meeting with a client and they wanted to, start a Google ad campaign. And, within just a couple hours of the campaign launching, they had a three orthodontist, patient lead, a woman who
Wow.
she had 3 kids who needed ortho. I think it was an $8 click, maybe $6 click, and it was an $8,000 appointment.
Wow.
So
Now, how much does the market play into it? Like, was this in an A-level market or more like a tertiary market?
No, that was A-level. That was Dallas Fort Worth. That
Wow.
was a pretty expensive market. I mean, we've got great data, for San Diego, for example, dental implants. We're looking at about $90 per conversion cost, in that space. And, any dentist will tell you that an implant is a pretty profitable procedure.
Hmm.
So, but typically within the kind of the general marketing space, we're looking at about, $20 to $40 on the high end for a conversion cost. This is for a patient.
Okay. And so 20 to 40, I'm guessing 20 would be maybe in a more rural market, 40 would be in the markets you'd listed like Dallas, San Diego.
Yeah, and there are a lot of other factors in there too, because some of these campaigns might focus more on like a specialty, like orthodontics or children's, but
Okay.
it depends on the market almost entirely. And so what we do is we help people figure out what that core number is, that they should really be shooting for, and then we optimize from there.
Okay. And so like for anybody who's listening and across any industry, I mean, of course, dental as well, but like if you're listening to this and it's like, oh crap, like it's making the wheels turn and maybe, you don't have this optimized yet, what are some steps that you could do on your own to get started?
Uh, Honestly, the first thing I would do would be contact us for an ad audit, or take a punch list. Take a look at your website, put it through, let's say, like a Google AdWords audit tool. I would take a look at, where your patients are coming from. So in this case, take a look at, your phone calls, your emails, really what is the life cycle, and try to look at your path there, because 9 times out of 10, Austin, most of the times you can optimize an ad campaign, but what the client really needs to do is optimize their office process.
Mm.
And so you can kind of pair those two together. So we'll work with people and just say, hey, what is the best way for you to take a patient? What's the best way for someone to book? Is it really your phone? Do you have, staff that can actually take incoming phone calls? If not, then let's go digital. So it really is just taking a look at your process.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, and last thing too is I would just take a look at, if they have run an ad campaign before, because by all means, go to AdWords, set up an account and try it on for size. I assure you, you'll be able to do a basic campaign, but that basically will kind of provoke someone's curiosity. If I spend this, how does it work? But yeah, that's kind of a self audit, if you will.
Okay. Yeah. So, and this is great. I mean, this is super helpful. So in closing, anything else that you want to add to this, and what's the best way for people to get in touch if they want to know more?
Actually, yeah, one of the simplest ways, Austin, and I could share my screen here to show you, or
Yeah.
if that would
Yeah,
work.
go ahead.
Do you mind? The simplest way to do this is actually if you just go to tripleskinny.com, and let me go ahead and share my screen. And so it's TRIPLE skinny.com. And what we have here is just on the front page of our website, we have a calculator here. So you can basically put, what do you want to spend in your ads?
Nice.
What are you willing to pay per click? And so we're looking at, let's say $2.50 per click. And then we ask, hey, what's your conversion rate? So if this is either a phone call to the office or a click to the website, how often are these, patients closing based on what you've seen? And then we ask, what is the value of a new patient? So on average, a new patient value on the low end might be about $250. And we ask people to actually also calculate the lifetime value of their patients. So you can really find an average here. But when you play with these numbers here, even like changing your conversion rate slightly here. So this could be a 1% increase in, the office staff taking appointments. You see the profit right here. And so these are incredibly realistic, numbers to work with, but I would absolutely love to walk somebody through this if they have any questions.
Yeah, it's very
simple. This is the best way for them to kind of self-onboard, kind of figure out, what will work, and actually get the numbers in front of them.
Fantastic. So that's tripleskinny.com.
Yeah, tripleskinny.com.
Okay, I'll put that in the show notes for everybody listening. Yeah, that'd be great. Is there a point of contact that they could reach out to?
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
Just go to the website.
They can go to the website. They can feel free to reach out to me directly. So we've got 12 people on our team, but I always like to have personal hellos to any new client, because I just like to get to know them. And yeah, so my email is Aaron, AARON, at tripleskinny.com.
Perfect. Okay. Well, Aaron, this has been great. Thanks so much. Thanks for taking the time to educate us and give us some top-down level approaches and some real world hands-on steps that we can do as well. So we appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Austin, I love this stuff. Like there has never been a more fun time to be in the digital world, just because we have all these fun tools and techniques, and we're working with AI and smart technology now, and it's just like a big playground. And we love what we do. We've got a great team of people, and it's been a treat. So thank you so much for having me on the show today.
Oh yeah, my pleasure.